Breaking news, Stormy Daniels' testimony has now ended in former President Trump's criminal hush money trial. Prosecutors have now called Trump Organization employee Rebecca Manochio as their next witness. And I want to bring in ABC News senior investigative correspondent Aaron Katersky, who's outside that courthouse, along with ABC News executive editorial producer John Santucci and ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer for more. Brian, what's your reaction to Stormy Daniels' testimony under cross-examination and redirect? How do you think ultimately she did as a prosecutorial witness?
As a prosecutorial witness, I think when we got down to the end of it, it was interesting that the focus then became on these tweets, the back and forth, the motivation behind it, and the attitude that both of these individuals felt against each other. And I think it became very revealing, and I think ended up benefiting the prosecution in the long run, that this was a feud between two individuals kind of tweeting at each other, arguing with each other, and that the animus might be pulled away from the reporting of this alleged incident and more as to the kind of bickering back and forth. I think ultimately that helps the prosecution.
John, how do you think she did both legally here, but also she hates Donald Trump. She said it on the stand, and clearly she wanted to hurt him.
Hates him with a passion. I mean, and I think the hatred is mutual, because you obviously saw at one point not only were her tweets about Donald Trump being shown, Donald Trump's tweets about her were being shown, and clearly no love lost after, you know, that one night in 2006, clearly. So I think that the reality is that, look, Stormy Daniels' job on the stand for prosecutors was just to set the scene of what happened that was a story, was a night that Donald Trump never wanted to see come to light of day, because this is all the details of what were around it. So, mission accomplished there. Did it go too far? Did it get into other things? Did it talk about Stormy Daniels' life post-2016, 2018, raising money, doing tours, books, blah, 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 blah? It doesn't matter. None of it matters. Like, literally, you just have to find a way to put your ears on and tune it out.
This was the story he was allegedly trying to cover up.
Correct. That is what matters at the end of the day. It was what happened that night, what happened if it would come out leading up to the 2016 election. That is why prosecutors called her. So I think there was a lot of noise, a lot of interesting color, some graphic detail, etc. You got to find a way as the jurors to say, okay, let's tune this out and get rid of it. And look, part of the thing here that we have to remember, this was complicated in part because she went so far. The prosecutors asked the question, the witness takes it however they want to. It's the part of the reason why Donald Trump's legal team moved for a mistrial. Judge Juan Merchan immediately said, nope, we're not there yet. But you got to imagine that if Donald Trump's team decides to appeal this, should he lose this case, this will be one of the points that they will make, that this testimony went too far, damaged their client.
Aaron, now we have Rebecca Manochio on the stand. She's a Trump Organization employee. Where's the prosecution going with this line of questioning?
They're instantly going back to the heart of the matter, the documents that were allegedly falsified, including the invoices, the ledger entries, and the checks that Donald Trump signed reimbursing Michael Cohen in 12 monthly installments. Manochio was the employee at the Trump Organization who mailed the checks, the physical checks, down to the White House while Trump was there for him to sign. She doesn't know anything else about the falsification of records, but the paper trail, this is all part of the paper trail that prosecutors have been trying to lay out for the jury.
John, how important is that process? It's maybe not as interesting to listen to for the jury as listening to an alleged sexual encounter, but they're hearing now about how these checks made their way to the White House.
Yeah, I was going to say, no pun intended, this is not that sexy of a conversation happening, right? This is literally the process. I was going to
say, and then he actually did say it.
I have to tease you a little bit. Listen, it may happen. But anyway, so the reality is this is just following where the documents, the records, the checks went. So we know from the testimony that was given by the comptroller earlier this week that the comptroller's office in the Trump Organization had to prepare these checks to be signed. That came from Jeff McConney. What Rebecca is going to speak about, because she was Alan Weisselberg, the CFO's assistant for many, many years. She still works at the Trump Organization, to be clear, and she's testifying, as she says, as part of a subpoena, is that she would take those documents, put them in a FedEx envelope, ship them down to the White House to get them signed. They would get returned to her. Now we know where we're going next, if you will, because FedEx gets shipped to Washington, D.C. FedEx is received by Madeleine Westerhout, who was the executive assistant to Donald Trump in the White House. We know that she's going to be called by prosecutors. I would imagine this is all setting the table for her being the next witness.
And then those checks went back to Manochio, who's now describing how she would open those envelopes. She's being asked, what did you receive back from DC? They were signed. Did you always check to make sure they were signed once you got them back? Yes. Yep. Whose signature was on them? Mr. Trump's. Brian, how important is that part of it? It feels like very detailed, but the fact that he personally had to sign each and every one of these checks.
So it's not just the fact that he did sign it, but this I'd almost analogize to like a chain of custody witness, in the fact that this witness has the opportunity to say, we mailed, they went out. I'm presuming that she's testifying that when they mailed them out, there were blank checks, and when they came back, they were signed. And this is a person who's very familiar with the signature of Donald J. Trump and has the ability to say, I recognize it, this is what it was, this was the process, and then go forward from there. It's, again, as John said, maybe not the sexiest aspect of this trial.
You like that word, too. Huh?
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you. What is it, make the trial sexy again? Is that what you're trying to advocate?
Aaron, can you save us from these puns, please, and just go back to what's happening?
Yeah, but I think the smart part is we're veering back to the essence of the case.
Yeah.
We're moving away from that dialogue and go, okay, can we reframe for the jury and everyone else what this is about? And I think that's a positive move for the prosecution, and the defense can go back in terms of arguing, you don't know the details of these checks, you don't understand where they were going, you don't understand why they were signed for, you don't understand the cover, and we're getting back to the trial.
Aaron, is that where you see this going back to now process and paperwork?
Yes, and remember, Diane, what the testimony was before Stormy Daniels took the stand on Tuesday. She was preceded by a book editor who read excerpts of Donald Trump's various books, where he talks about how important it was for the owner of a business to look at the invoices and to sign the checks personally. He talked about resisting the auto pen. This witness is talking about the stacks of checks that she'd send down, and Trump, by his own account in his books, and the jury heard it, would look at everyone, would look at what they're for, because that's how he said he made so much money as a billionaire, by being a penny pincher and by reading carefully the fine print in all of this and all of these records. And prosecutors are hoping to show that Trump was more than a passive player in all this, as the defense has suggested.
And Brian, in a way, that testimony was overshadowed by the fact that Stormy Daniels then followed that witness who worked for the book publisher. But how much are we going to see those book excerpts now come back and connect the dots here?
I think we're going to see them enough for the prosecution to say, okay, guys, here's a dot. We can all agree this occurred. Here's another dot. We can all agree it occurs. And it's that connective tissue that really drives home the idea that this was something that passed through multiple people's hands for the purpose of covering up this issue, that being the alleged relationship between Donald Trump and Stormy Daniels and the purpose behind it. If they can make all those connections and show that they are more truthful, or especially beyond a reasonable doubt, I think they're part way to getting a conviction here.
Aaron, how hard does it make it for the defense to distance Donald Trump from these payments and the records and the way that this all went into the ledger, with the number of witnesses that they have with close ties to him testifying to each and every part of this process?
I think that's just it, Diane. These are his witnesses. They're people who've worked for him for a long time, who've testified about how he conducts his business affairs, and have really put him and put the jury in the room where he's multitasking, but he's signing checks and he's looking at the checks, and he's the one that makes the financial decisions. That, yes, you could get Alan Weisselberg to sign off, but only on something under $10,000. Anything else above $10,000 would have to be signed by Trump personally. And these monthly reimbursement checks to Michael Cohen were $12,000 a month. And so the prosecutors are attempting to show that Donald Trump knew exactly what these checks were for, and maybe more importantly, knew how he wanted them recorded when it came time to log them in the system.
John, how's Trump reacting to this testimony?
So he's writing down notes right now as this witness is on the stand, passing them to his attorney, Susan Neckles, who obviously is going to be likely the one to do any type of cross-examination here. Look, we know Donald Trump, as we've all been talking about, is obsessed with the companies, obsessed with the details. So I'd actually be curious what he would have a problem with here, because, you know, what this witness is testifying to is that Donald Trump signed a bunch of checks. Everyone around Donald Trump, frankly, has seen it. Guess what? I've seen it. I've seen Donald Trump, when he campaigned for the White House in 2015 and 16, followed with a banker's box. Looked like pretty much the boxes that he took documents to Mar-a-Lago with, but that's another story. And in the box was the checks. And I myself asked Donald Trump years ago, what is that? And he said, I believe I need to sign every check so I know what I'm paying for. So that's a lot of what's now about to happen, right? What were those checks? Why are they going in the envelopes? Was there any sense of what those checks were for? Maybe or not. Is she be able to testify to exactly that? Again, she was the assistant, so probably just more of, you know, doing some of the, you know, basic job of, you know, okay, this has to go to this White House for this or whatever. And she said on the stand that she coordinated it with Madeleine Westerhout, the executive assistant at the White House. So again, it's all teeing up to the process of following all the records. I think Madeleine will be, frankly, a little more consequential because, in theory, she was there presenting this to her boss, the President of the United States, to sign it, then putting it back, knowing what it was.
And Brian, they've now entered, the prosecutors have entered a series of emails and FedEx records into evidence. Is that the main goal here in putting Manochio on the stand, not only hearing her account of the process, but also just getting this paperwork on record?
Yeah, so the account of the process, she's kind of operating as a witness in the sense of what she sees, hears, and understanding the process by which I believe Donald Trump is establishing how he wants documents brought to him, how he wants checks signed to him. In this aspect, as to the FedEx, she is acting as a custodial witness because she has the ability to say that I am typically the one who handles these FedEx accounts and the management of sending them in and out. And so she has the ability to bring that into evidence to allow for the prosecution to argue, here's the process, here's how it moves from point A to point B and then back to A again.
Aaron, what are you watching for next?
Well, I think, as I think John suggested, Madeleine Westerhout is going to be the recipient of the checks. She is expected to testify if we get to her after lunch, I would think, if not tomorrow. And this is all leading to sort of the denouement of the prosecution's case, the testimony of Michael Cohen. You've heard about the sex, you've heard about the money. Michael Cohen is the one that is seemingly the connective tissue and the only witness who will be able to connect Donald Trump to the hush payment to Stormy Daniels. No other witness has been able to do that directly, and as we've seen the defense try to lay the groundwork to attack his credibility, the key to this is going to be whether the jury believes him. So all of this is sort of prelude to Michael Cohen's testimony, which in all likelihood will begin next week.
All right, Aaron Katersky, John Santucci, Brian Buckmeyer, thank you. And we will bring you updates from the courtroom all day long here on ABC News Live. Again, Stormy Daniels has wrapped her testimony for the day, and now Rebecca Manochio, former Trump employee, or current Trump employee, I should say, is on the stand.